Greetings, this is Willie Muhammad with National Network View. On tonight's show, Dr. Abdul Haleem Muhammad and Dr. Asad El-Malik will discuss the latest in the Derek Chauvin murder trial, the use of police violence against George Floyd, and the lack of intervention to prevent his murder. Later in the show, we will discuss the merchandising of industry artists and controversial music content. Lastly, we will discuss the racial discrimination and the reparations in Evanston, Illinois. The Nubian Leadership Circle held its all-virtual National Black Leadership Summit #2 on April the 3rd, 2021. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan spoke during this virtual event about building our own society.
I'm very honored to be with you once again, pursuing the creation of our own Black nation. That's a noble objective. That is exactly what God wants us to do. We have become a nation within a nation. But as a nation within a nation, we have numbers. We get out of this economy $1.2 or $3 trillion a year. But we don't have earth that we can call our own. So pursuing the creation of our own Black nation starts with a vision. What do we have in our heads and in our hearts?
On yesterday's I Have a Testimony show, I spoke with Sister Carmen Muhammad about her inspirational fashion, and she's also a fashion designer and founder of the El Nisa Designs, which models and styles the MGT apparel that has garnered international acclaim and awards during the Torino Fashion Week. How examples of how you have seen the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan be an advocate for the rights of women?
Every time he does a lecture and he is focusing on the value of the woman, the value of the mother, the value of the daughter, the beauty of the woman, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan does nothing but lift the woman up and inspires us to be women of God. Everything that he does is to build a better life for us. He understands who we are. He understands that we are that second self of God. And he tries every time he speaks to us to let us know that his love for us is so pure and so real, and that he is the protector over us. And he will continue to do that because he is constantly exalting the women.
Student Minister Donald Muhammad discussed the growing dissatisfaction with the U.S. government and their ongoing actions to affect voter participation.
How would you characterize the current racial atmosphere and political climate in the United States?
Well, you can always determine based on the progress of Black people. They has always tried to hold us back. Go all the way back to Black Wall Street in Tulsa. Go all the way back to changing. They are doing this in 43 states all over the United States right now, even in the Missouri. Missouri is what they call a red state. So therefore, they have changed a lot of the voter laws here as well. Also, in the city of St. Louis, they had a proposition called Prop D that took away the partisan political voting elections, and then they are nonpartisan now. So now there's a runoff. Even when two people win, the first two that wins in a primary has to do a runoff now. All of this is designed to stop Black rule, my brother.
NNB contributor Charles Muhammad discussed the science of fasting and describing its benefits to cleanse the body of impurities, lower the blood sugar, and improve health.
So what are some other benefits, besides curing sickness and obviously weight loss?
Well, there's another saying that if you free the mind, the body will follow. So when you fast, you're basically renewing your cellular structure of your body, and you're cleaning the body. And also you are allowing one of the most important organs in your body to do its job. That's the liver. And the liver begins a process called ketosis. Now, ketosis is when your body begins to take out the fats of the body and then bring it into the liver, and the liver turns it into what are called ketones. And then the ketones are like straight wide up to your brain. It's like fuel for the brain. And we as Muslim followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we go through that process when we go fast during Ramadan, when we don't eat during the sunlight.
Tequila Muhammad gave us tips on food storage, disaster preparedness, and having an emergency evacuation plan in place for ourselves and our family.
So what should we have in a disaster preparedness plan that helps us in the event of evacuation?
Yes, sir. First and foremost, we all should have our go bags with us. A go bag is a bag that you basically put together for you and your family, each member of the family of your household, where you have enough items to last you for a bare minimum of 3 days, which includes food, clothing, some type of shelter that you're able to put on your back comfortably and be able to walk for long distance or periods of time. You also want to have those same storage containers in your car or at your workplace, as well as your children's schools if they're in school. And you want to make sure that you are preparing your family by having those evacuations, practicing without utilities to know how to cook or how to be able to survive without having heat, without having food, without being able to cook your food, and just practice with your family. Maybe do a camping thing where you all are turning your lights off and turning off the electricity just for that day to see how you all cope and survive during that time, as well as walking long periods of time with your backpack on to see how far off your family can make it during any disaster. So the biggest thing is properly preparing before the disaster strikes.
Abdul Haq updated us on the Noor peace agreement and the people standing together in solidarity against senseless violence and our open enemy.
It's a combination of several factors that's now encouraging our people to do more as it relates to being more actively involved, as it relates to not just my community, but our community. One of the major problems that we as a people face in our community is bystander apathy. It's called bystander apathy. When you see someone doing something, you feel since they have it, you don't have to participate. But I can see that North is inhaling the spirit of unity and cooperation and community, real community, not just the word, but community in practice. And we are implementing and instituting the principles that we have been given from giants like Marcus Garvey, Noble Drew Ali, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So the teachings have always been here, but now it's time that we implement these teachings and all that they have given us. So I'm humbled and I'm honored to be a part of such a great initiative that's not just happening in the North, but in urban cities all throughout America. So all praise is due to Allah.
Teyi Uhuru explained how Africa is safer than America when it comes to living.
As far as my travels around the world, I haven't had any horror stories. A lot of countries are a lot safer than the United States, including Africa. They have dozens of countries that have lower crime rates, lower gun violence, less mass shootings, and of course, less racism. So when I'm in Africa, I tend to feel stress-free. I tend to feel welcome. To narrow it down to one African country, that's almost impossible. But I will say, a place like Egypt, where we learn about ancient African history, 5,000, 10,000 years ago, the Valley of the Kings, the Valley of the Queens, the pyramids of Giza, the Step Pyramid. These places show us how great we were before slavery. And that's a feeling that I think all African Americans should have. And, also Ghana, I would give it up to Ghana because a lot of us are still looking for closure and reconnection in terms of the transatlantic slave trade, so we can see what our ancestors went through. We can enter the door of no return. We can visit the slave dungeons, the slave ports, and we can also learn about the reconnection and the offerings that places like Ghana have made to us, as far as land, as far as citizenship, as far as asking for forgiveness.
NNV Weekly contributor Brian E. Muhammad discussed the UN's declaration condemning Egypt.
What has prompted this action by the UN?
Well, Rosalind, it was actually pressure from human rights groups and organizations from around the world who wanted to make sure that the problem of Egypt was placed on the Human Rights Council radar screen. Egypt is a member state, along with these other states that you mentioned, the 31 countries that signed a letter to condemn Egypt for its human rights abuse problem. And so it took outside groups, independent groups from around the world to put pressure on the Human Rights Commission to take this up recently at their 46th session that just ended, in fact, a week ago. And so really it was pressure from the rights organizations from around the world that brought this on.
Urban gardener Vivian Muhammad discussed container gardens and greenhouses.
What are starter plants and what is the process for growing them?
Starter plants, also known as seedlings, are plants that you can buy at any kind of garden center. And those plants are then transplanted into a garden versus, for instance, direct sow or direct seeding, which means you take the actual seed and plant it directly into the soil. Because we live in Indiana in zone 6, because the whole United States is put up in zones, and in our particular zone and in other zones north of us and a few south of us, when we grow and what we can grow is very dependent on what month it is. And because we can't really get started until middle of May, as far as putting things like tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, watermelon, cantaloupe, all those in the garden, if we put them in too early, they will run the risk of being frosted. We have very late, Indianapolis, Indiana is notorious for late winter weather. And so all those plants would die in any type of weather below 32 degrees. Today it's 26 degrees. So you kind of get the idea. So starter plants lets us get a head start on the season, which is why they call them starter plants, because we start them indoors and then transplant them.
Hip hop artist, writer, and MC Taji Akib shared information on his latest venture, Project Sunrise.
Now, on Project Sunrise, you filmed in Senegal. What was the environment like out there?
It was a little rough because, you know, it's not, I didn't have the things I was used to here in America, the comforts that we had here. My sister actually lives over there. She has a foundation that's on land in like the countryside in Senegal, in Bojin. And they live kind of, you know, they live off the land pretty much. And so it was a rough lifestyle, but the people were very embracing of what I was doing over there, which was a little bit surprising because I heard the Senegalese people can be a little, they can be private and proud and, you know, they don't like cameras on, that kind of thing, but they actually embraced it. And I actually, to be honest with you, I got more support on it from people who barely spoke the same language as me there than I did ever on projects here. You know what I'm saying? So it was an eye-opening experience. It was enlightening. And by the time that I left, I was there for about 2 weeks. By the time I left, I didn't want to leave.
Let us pause for announcements from our sponsors. Then we'll be right back with Dr. Abdul Haleem Muhammad and Dr.Asad El-Malik to discuss police violence and the Derek Chauvin trial. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
This is Sister Sajida Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
The hashtag Bank Black social media campaign made strides not only in revolutionizing how we bank, but also how we think. The movement inspired thousands of African Americans across the country to transfer or deposit millions of dollars into Black-owned banks. These are banks that will invest in urban communities, employ African Americans, support Black businesses, and inspire Black home ownership. This is a very proud moment for our culture as we are taking small, but significant, steps towards building Black power through Black wealth.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
America and the world is learning more and more details of the events that took place on May 25th, 2020, when Derek Chauvin showed no sympathy for the cries of George Floyd as the world watched his last moments. The details are evoking a range of emotion from those who have testified and those who watched the court proceedings.
Some of us Black folk, some of us Black men, we're not going to stand there. We're going to have to intervene in some way. They ain't gonna kill us like that, and we remain spectators. Because somewhere I read, silence is not an option. I don't stand with the silence. That's the last two sentences of your letter to Drew, your letter to your nephew. But America needs to understand that too. We got a self-respect. We got a self-defense. And we intervene when you start killing us like that.
I'm sorry.
We intervene out of love, brother. Out of deep love. We do it for Mommy.
Let me ask you this, because everyone I saw on that video, and I asked this earlier, everyone I saw had some empathy, saw the humanity, felt the humanity, George Floyd, as you said, foibles and all. We're not thinking that when someone's laying on the pavement in that situation, like what they've done wrong. We're thinking about, well, you're taking the life from a human being. Why is it that every single, and when you said the police thing, everybody saw his humanity and felt it, except for the police officer?
Joining us to discuss this issue is Dr. Abdul Haleem Muhammad and Dr. Asad El-Malik. Thank you, brothers, for joining us, and let's get straight down to it. And I'll start with you, Dr. Abdul Haleem, and then we'll go to our brother, Dr. Asad. So you saw the emotion that came from Brother Cornel West, and the question I want to ask is, should that be the spirit of Black people going forward as who see the use of excessive force by members of the law enforcement intervene?
Well, we remember, Brother Willie, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's Criterion speech on July 4th. And there's no way that we can be filming these kind of things, calling the officers expletives and things of that nature, while we watch them take the lives of our people unjustifiably. And so at a certain point in time, you're going to have to risk your life in order to save a life. And so that's where we stand today. You have a life that God gave to you, and your life is precious. And if you're not willing to defend it, you may not be worthy to have it.
Thank you, my brother. And Dr. Asad, what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Every animal in nature has the ability and the right to defend their lives, its life. And we have to, but you know, let me give a little sidebar. I think what's been the type of trauma and terrorism that we have faced in these 460 years that we have been in this nation has had such an effect on our psyche that we may not currently have the courage or the ability to strike in a way in which we need to strike. So we have to find that within ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. You know, there have been demands by people who are advocating for police reform, for changes in training, to defunding the police, and all type of calls for reform. But despite that, the number of Black men, women, and children who die in the hands of the police have not stopped. So from your perspective, why hasn't it stopped? We'll go with Dr. Asad, and then we'll come back to Dr. Haleem.
What I tell people all the time is that African Americans have to realize that we are a second-class citizenship or second-class citizenry. And that this type of, if you look at the trial this week, I believe his name was Lieutenant Richard Zimmerman, and he is the most senior police officer in that department. He said none of this was in his training. What Chauvin did to George Floyd was not in training. It's not about training. It's not about the funding. It is about the perception of Black Americans in the minds of white Americans and even in the minds of some Black Americans. We are a second-class citizen. There's a word for it. It's called infrahumanization. Infrahumanization is when the in group, which happens to be the white group, the group that has the power, the privilege, and the authority, sees the out group as less human. And until we understand that they are operating from a perception that we are no more above the savage or the animal, there's no amount of training that can change that psyche.
And what do you say about that, Dr. Haleem, in regards to, as he said, the police officer said that what Derek Chauvin did was not even in the training, but people are calling for a change in the training.
My brother, Minister Farrakhan has taught me, you cannot retrain a reprobate racist mind. You either got to get rid of them and find some people who are less reprobate and less racist. And we've got to understand that we have a demand on the back of our newspaper. It appeared on the back of the Muhammad Speaks. We want freedom, full and complete freedom. We want justice. You know, we want equal justice on the law. We want equality of opportunity. Mr. Farrakhan told me, brother, that the Muslim program is our constitution, and it's not possible for them to give us freedom, justice, and equality because it's not in their nature. So the question we have to ask ourselves today is, what happens if Chauvin is acquitted, or there's a hung jury, or he's convicted and gets a lesser sentence? What happens then? It's not an amount of training or anything. And the irony is that the murder of George Floyd took place on May 25th, which is the beginning of the Constitutional Convention in 1787 of America. So America is at a crossroads now, and she's facing a racial reckoning that during that Constitutional Convention, they did not include us or think of us, and they made two major compromises in the Constitutional Convention so that they could have one nation under God, but it did not include us. And now the 13th, 14th, the 15th Amendment was supposed to fix that, but it hasn't fixed their minds. So we're going to have to seek another solution, and I believe that solution will ultimately be separation.
And so we heard our brother Dr. Abdul Haleem talk about Dr. Asad, where he said about whether or not if Derek Chauvin is found guilty or he's found innocent. From your perspective, what would be the impact of the verdict? If he's found guilty, how would that impact Black America? And what would probably be Black America's response? And if he's found innocent, how would that impact Black Americans? Then we'll come back to our brother as well.
I think obviously a guilty verdict will serve the benefits of justice, and we'll be able to say that justice was achieved and delivered in that case. However, I'm not expecting a guilty verdict. I'm expecting either a hung jury or acquittal. And I'm sure that we remember this, the summer activities of the protest. I'm sure we'll see a lot of protest. I'm sure we'll see a lot of lofty speeches from politicians and different members of our community. But maybe I'm cynical, but I don't believe anything will change in our psyche, nor will it change in theirs.
Mm-hmm. What do you say, Dr. Abdul Haleem?
This is the 53rd anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. I can't get that out of my mind because I'll never forget that day as a young boy, about 12 years old, and what I heard a woman scream out of my grandmother's tenement building as I was going to catch the bus to go uptown. Said, "Oh my God, they done killed Dr. King." And I watched Harlem burn after that. I can't forget that day. And the Reverend Barber in North Carolina says we're in the third Reconstruction. And other people are repeating that. I've heard other commentators say third. Well, what happened during the first two Reconstructions? We made progress and we got knocked back. Then we got civil rights and we got knocked back. And now we're in the midst of, after 50 years of trickle-down economics and conservative policies, we find ourselves talking about a third Reconstruction after electing a Black president for 2 terms. And we see the pushback after the 2020 election of what's going on in all of these states. Beloved, we're going to have to ask and demand for measurable, observable, tangible progress before we believe anything after 460 plus years of injustice, slavery, suffering, and death.
Yes, sir. So we'll come back. So what do you all see as possible solutions? Like, it's almost a repeat. Somebody gets filmed getting beat or killed by the police. It's anger, protest, marches, but it chills out and then it goes right back. So, you know, we have a variety of organizations that say this is the solution, this is the solution. So we'll start with Brother Dr. Asad, and then we'll come to Dr. Abdul Haleem. What are some possible solutions as we go to our break? We have 2 minutes. If you can give us a quick response to that.
Separation. That's the answer. Separation. On May 25th, 2020 is when I decided to leave the United States of America, because I have traveled the world and I know what it's like to walk on soil and to be liberated from the idea of race, to be liberated from being a Black person and graduated into just being a human being. So for the individual, those who are able, those who have the means, there's a big world out here. And there's a world where our skin color is not a curse, and that we can find our humanity and our agency and our ability to live a life free from racism and white supremacy.
Wow, that's interesting. On the very same day of the actual murder of our brother George Floyd, you made the decision, and I've been following you on social media, to leave America. Wow. So Dr. Abdul Haleem, what do you see as a solution? Our brother said separation. I know I'm not trying to be like a psychic, but I know you're going to go right.
That's the best and only solution. And having traveled to Africa on 2 occasions, and also having traced my own DNA to the people of the Ubuntu people of Angola, and the other part was a mixture of all of West Africa. You know, wherever we go, we're welcome. There's a liberating spirit when you leave the confines of the United States of America. Wherever you go, it could be the Caribbean, it could be Central South America, it could be Asia. Wherever you go, you feel like a weight is left off of your shoulders, and particularly when you go to the continent. Now, separation would be, for me, ideal here within the confines of the United States of America, because our blood, sweat, and tears built this country, and they owe us. And we can start with 100 million acres of land here. But until that time, they must work on freedom, justice, and equality within the social, political, and economic order of America. If not, then the continuation of the calamities will take place, and the continuation of the clash of the people will take place until they decide and recognize that God's hand is against America, because she's unjust to the people that she enslaved, to the people whose land she stole, and to even her own poor whites.
And Dr. Asad, we'll close out with you on this very briefly. You say you're cynical about the outcome, despite the powerful testimony by Lieutenant Zimmerman and even the paramedics. So you still think there's a chance where this man can beat that charge?
I think I'm muted. During the Emmett Till trial, and this is what struck me, and I'll try to be brief. During the Chauvin trial last week, there was a 9-year-old girl who testified, and they showed a video of it. They didn't show her face, but she had a shirt that said "love," and I thought that was, you juxtapose that against what she had to witness of brother Floyd being murdered, and the bravery that she displayed on that stand. During the Emmett Till trial, there was a man named Mose Wright who stood up, and he said, "Dar he, right? As he pointed out, the killers or the guys who kidnapped, the white men who kidnapped Emmett Till. There was enough evidence to convict those men. There's enough evidence to convict Chauvin. And now the entire range of the killers of Mike Brown, George Zimmerman, all of these people that we have in between, and we've seen it over and over again where these murderous cops get off. So
wow.
We have a history. I don't think history attests to the fact that this person will be convicted.
Yes, sir. So let us pause for our announcements from our sponsors. And when we return, our contributors will discuss the controversy surrounding the artist Lil Nas X. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Thank you for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Clifton Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button, or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. As we renovate and restore the former home of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we have recycled the old copper gutters and downspouts and created a 1 ounce 39mm coin made of 100% pure copper. Each coin is professionally graded and has its own barcode and registration number. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
Once again, the internet and television was set ablaze over controversial music content and merchandise of an industry artist. The most recent in the headlines now is Lil Nas X.
The sportswear giant filed a trademark infringement lawsuit against Mischief. That's the streetwear company responsible for the divisive design. Lil Nas X is not named as a defendant in the suit. The so-called Satan shoe was adorned with a bronze pentagram and upside-down cross and allegedly contains a drop of human blood in the soles. Nike said in a statement, "We do not have a relationship with Lil Nas X or Mischief. The Satan shoes were produced without Nike's approval or authorization, and Nike is in no way connected with this project."
You know, to each of you, people were saying that this controversy and the feedback that came, the backlash that came as a result of Lil Nas X in his video and his shoes was really because he's gay. Because they mentioned several other artists, Marilyn Manson, 666 Mafia, and others who have used the satanic references in their music to do that. So we'll start with you, Brother Asad. Is the backlash because of him using the satanic references, or is it because he's gay?
Oh, I definitely think it's because he's gay. We can't lie to ourselves and delude ourselves. We have to be honest. There was 666 Mafia. There was our dear brother Jay-Z, who made 2 songs about Satan. One was called Lucifer and the other one was called The Evils. And there was no backlash. So I think that homophobia definitely played a role in the response to Lil Nas X's video. Madonna in the 80s was singing Like a Prayer, where she simulated oral sex on Jesus. And so this type of stuff has been in the music industry for a very long time. And I guess she did receive some sort of backlash for it. But when it relates to hip hop has been playing with Ouija boards and 666 Mafia for the last 20 years, and none of those groups received the type of backlash that Lil Nas X had. Whether you agree with his sexual preference or not, we have to be honest about what we are upset about.
So what do you say, Dr. Abdul Haleem?
I think that plays a part in it. I have to agree with Doc. But I also think that is because our children and grandchildren were reciting the lyrics to his song. That the impact is different than 666 Mafia, than Madonna, than any of these rock bands, that our babies were reciting that first song, that first so-called cowboy song it was. But what's most disturbing to me is the fact that it appears that Lil Nas X is not the problem. Mischief is really not the problem. It's the people behind it. It's that hidden hand. It is as the Holy Quran says that Satan told God that I'm going to lie and wait for them in thy straight path. And I'm going to come before them and behind them and from their left and from their right. And so, as Doc pointed out, those of us who may stand on religious principles that are against that type of lifestyle, we're being interpreted. The devil always interprets this thing as hate speech. And those of us who may be more liberal, meaning on the left, we're more liberal because, in fact, we got gay people in our families. That's being misinterpreted. And those who are a little bit more conservative, that's being misinterpreted. And then they come behind us, and anything we say is reinterpreted to make it all fit into this satanic state of mind. And I close with 3 points. We have to understand the power of propaganda. Edward Bernays is known as the father of public relations. And you got to understand the power of propaganda and the power of what's going on. Then you also have to understand subliminal seduction. The subliminal seduction, the things that are being actually programmed in our mind that we don't even understand are being said to us in every frame of every time a movie or television show is shown to us. And lastly, what's happening to the Black community in particular and people, the masses of people in general, we need to study this man, Joseph Goebbels, and what he did so that 1/3 of the German population literally disappeared, the homosexuals, the Jews, the gypsies, the communists, and the German people didn't say a word. It's really concerning that 1/2 of Republicans that were polled believed that left-wing forces were at the root of the insurrection that took place in Washington, D.C. This is very concerning. What comes over this? Remember what Master Fard Muhammad taught the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He said one day, Elijah, he said that we've been entertaining the devil in our living room, and it appears it's coming through that one-eyed monster called the television.
Yes, sir, and the internet now and the phone. Thank you for those comments. Dr. Asad, Dr. Abdul Haleem mentioned about how there those that hidden hand behind that we don't see that pushes this artist and approves of this content. Candace Owens, and people agree with her, disagree with her, but one of the things that she said was that online to Lil Nas X was that he was being used by these corporations and these big execs to basically destroy the minds of children. Was she right in that assessment, or is she off basis?
Well, I think hip hop music in general for the last 25 years has been used to destroy the minds of children. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, and I can recall being in elementary school and the song was called "Give Me Some Heroin, Baby." That song got me crazy, right? And that was being played on the radio. So whether I agree with Lil Nas X's lifestyle or not, I believe that we are disingenuous if we do not hold the entire hip hop community accountable for what's been going on for the last 30 years. As it relates to the misogyny in the music, as it relates to the drug dealing in the music, as it relates to the violence against other Black men in the music. So I saw online, and I know that it may come as a surprise, what I saw online were people who were being hypocrites because they would listen to BG talk about shooting up an entire block in New Orleans and were upset at Lil Nas. If Lil Nas X is devilish for what he did in that video, then what they rap about, or what we have listened to for the last 30 years in hip hop is just as devilish. So I'm not going to condemn one without condemning the other.
Yes, sir. And what are your take on that, brother Dr. Abdul Haleem?
Well, black masculinity has been under attack since our feet hit the shores of North America, with buck breaking, lynching, police brutality, the propaganda in the media that makes us look like a beast. When you look at the Birth of a Nation movie by D.W. Griffith, that we're incompetent, we're incapable, we're unqualified to hold public office, and all we want to do is sleep with a white woman. And all of this, and then we look at the mass incarceration. We're people, especially black men, that are endangered species. So so you can again go and look at just the whole atmosphere environment that's being created now, about that we are the source of anti-Semitism, we're the source of misogyny, we're the source of anti-Asian hate, we're the source of all of the evils that embody America. But you know something, if you lift our tag in the back of our shirt, it won't say made in China, it'll say made in the USA.
So, and Dr. Asad, Dr. Abdul Haleem touched on it in this next question in regards to the emasculation and feminization of black men. You know, we have seen certain leaders as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, or even Brother Rizza with his stance, whether people are promoting, pushing, advocating for the vaccine or not, his stuff has been taken off of social media. But you have the likes of Lil Nas X, and not, we don't want to focus just on him, but others. Is there an overall effort to emasculate and feminize black men?
There's an overall attack on black men, period, whether it be to emasculate, whether it be to exterminate. There's an overall attack on black men regardless, and it comes in many forms. See, the devil is very tricky, and the way he uses the media to destroy black men. Brother Doctor mentioned buck breaking, and he mentioned these stereotypes that were used against black men. It's some of the same things that, for instance, even Hillary Clinton in her use of the word super predator played into those stereotypes against black men. Black men are an endangered species in this country.
Yes, sir. So Dr. Haleem, you are a father of sons and grandsons. So what is our response to counter it, right? From your perspective, and then we'll close out on our break after you finish.
Well, first and foremost, you know, in that day, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, in that day, our righteousness will sustain us. So you got to first and foremost got to get right with your Creator. You got to get right with God, and you got to get right with self. He taught us that the knowledge of self is akin to the knowledge of God. Once you know who you are, then you'll know whose you are, and that's very important. And then you then judge not, and you shall not be judged. And the best religion, Minister Farrakhan has taught us, as from his teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, is to do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and want for your brother and sister what you want for yourself. That is the best religion to practice. And I try to teach my sons that, and my grandsons that, and they got to make their own choices. At a certain point in time, you know, Brother Willie, that your children can't operate under your name, your holy name, or your X in the Nation of Islam. At a certain point in time, they have to make their own decision. And all we can do is to teach and be an example of what we believe to be right. And at that point, hope and pray that our children will see the way that we see it. And if not, to see it better so that they can take our people and the human race forward.
So Dr. Asad, you also have two sons, and we're coming up to our minute break. I'll give you an opportunity to respond to this as well. As a father of two sons, raising them to be Muslims, what do you do to combat this emasculation and feminization of black men?
One of the main things we do is I don't allow my children to listen to hip hop. I speak with my children about what it means to be a man. And we have rules in this house. And not only do we have rules of existing in this house, but expectations of life once they leave this house, because my oldest son is walking around with my name, and I'm walking around with the name of my father. So I tell him that he has a certain expectation. My father gave me a good name, and I'm giving him a good name, and he has to maintain that name and hopefully give his son a good name. So we have rules. Such thing as family come first, that we want to marry a woman like your mother. That you never place anyone above your family, because we're trying to build a different family unit here, one that is more culturally cohesive with our brothers and sisters in Africa, as opposed to this disjointed stuff that we have experienced here in the United States because of the breakup of our families. I think one of the things we don't understand in the United States is the science of family, So I'm trying to teach my son the science of family and the responsibility that comes along with it.
Appreciate it. Appreciate both of you all responses. We're coming up to our next break, so we're going to pause for announcements from our sponsors. And coming up, we'll be discussing reparations with our contributors. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Asiatic Minds. Online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness, as well as the greatness of our people, and upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Call now. 502-219-4848. Greetings from National Network View. This week's final call cover story headline reads, Food Shortages, COVID-19, and Fears of a Major Crisis. The coronavirus pandemic is disrupting food supply chains and hurting multiple food industries. People are worrying that the pestilence could impact the ability for Americans to eat. This FCN volume number 26 edition features the middle page article by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. This message is entitled, The Key to Success is to Do for Self. To read more, subscribe to finalcalldigital.com and tune in to the all-new Final Call Radio. This is the nnvnews.com Final Call Cover Report.
Are the efforts of a Chicago suburb the beginning of the fulfillment of the desires for reparations, for the reparations movement here in America?
There's a push to right the wrong done by the city. Several decades ago, African Americans were redlined. Here's a look at where blacks could live in the city.
People of color, such as myself and my dad, who grew up here in Evanston, just a couple blocks over, this is the area where they could live.
Vanessa Johnson-McCoy is a realtor in Evanston.
Years ago, that was not the opportunity, that we just couldn't take them to anywhere.
She recalls the challenges her parents faced in the 1950s and knows the obstacles blacks in Evanston endured looking for housing.
The banks would not allow them to, they wouldn't give them money to buy outside of this area. It was very challenging.
She's pleased to see Evanston correct the wrong through reparations. The city already approved $10 million over a decade to put towards reparations from the pot revenue. Now $400,000 will be available to blacks whose families were impacted by the racist housing policy.
Well, I say it's definitely a start. And I say yes, we have to begin somewhere.
So let's get straight down to it. I'll come with Dr. Abdul Haleem, and then we'll go back to our brother Dr.Asad. So is it a mere symbolic gesture, or is this a good first step?
It's a step. I don't know if it's good, and I don't know if it's a first step. But if it involves land, now you got my attention as an urban planner. You have my attention. Because without land, this whole thing is about property. It's about land. Remember the 39 men, actually 40 signatures on the Constitution, but the 39 men that signed the Constitution of the United States, they were white male property owners. And they didn't even want white men that didn't own property to vote. It's about land. So we got to have land in order to feed, clothe, and shelter ourselves. It's a good start, but it doesn't end there. You can give somebody money, but if you don't educate them with the knowledge of self to do for self, then that land can be taken from them. That money can be taken from them. And if you give them land to feed, clothe, and shelter themselves, you got to give them the tools and implements and materials necessary to sustain themselves. And you do have to provide a measure of capital so that they're able to continue and perpetuate what it is that they're doing. So land, education, tools, equipment, material, and capital. But really, we need more. We need like 100 million acres just to start.
Yes, sir. What do you say, Dr. Asad?
It's a noble effort, and I appreciate any step towards repairing what has been done to the Black community. However, when you read the plan that is in existence right now for Evanston, only 16 individuals will receive $25,000 at this point. You know, $25,000 is a lot to some people who have never seen $25,000. However, that is not reparations. Reparations must be a multi-generational effort, and it must be a very, very specific effort for those of us who are American descendants of slavery. So we need to make sure that this is not a one-off, because it's no one-off that can really correct what has been done. It must be a multi-generational effort.
Thank you. And so, Dr. Abdul Haleem, so, you know, how can Black activists, politicians, and groups who've been fighting for reparations for years use this development to add fuel to the larger fight for reparations? Or can they?
Well, this may backfire because, again, we're talking about something that, you know, sometimes is too little too late. And, you know, I've been in situations and seen people in situations where they'll go to the bank and the bank will lend them just enough money to fail. So we got to look at this thing. Again, I go back to the solution offered by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We're a nation within a nation, and we have to be treated like that. And we have to look at the reparations the Japanese received. We have to look at the reparations that the Jewish people received. We have to look at the reparations that others have received in order to real justice. But for us, it's going to require land. And it's required for us to have a holistic approach and to bring us all together. And as the minister said this weekend, it's going to take unity, it's going to take love, and we're going to have to want for our brother and sister what we want for ourselves and get our egos out of the way. So whoever's got the best plan and the best methodology, we need to put those together so that we can come up with, instead of fighting over a thesis and an antithesis, to put together and come together with a synthesis that what reparations would mean for us and to us. But I believe it comes down to having some land, having surface rights and mineral rights of the land that's under our feet.
What do you say, Dr. Asad? Can this first step be used by those advocates who've been fighting for reparations for years?
I believe so. I believe it's an example that can be even implemented in my hometown here in New Orleans. It can be implemented in other communities where we have large African-American population. Particularly, they're using the proceeds and the revenue from the I believe it's the sale of marijuana or the fines.
Pot fund.
I'm sorry, say it again.
The pot fund.
The pot fund, right? Yeah. So it is a. I'm not sure it could work in every location in every community, but indeed it is a start. And you know, for me, hey, let's cut the check. Let's start. This is a start. I want the check cut. We need the check cut. We have a wealth gap in this country that is insurmountable. I believe that the one study I read said it would take over 200 years for us to close the wealth gap with white Americans. We need the checks. We need the land. However however it may come, but definitely, and I agree with the brother, Dr. Brother, that we need some land. But for me in particular, you know, I think I can manage mine.
And of course, they say, from what I've read about this Evanston resolution, they're saying that this $25,000, this is the first phase, and there are other things that they're building on to it. Here's a question, and Dr. Haleem, you mentioned how the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan mentioned unity as one of the things that we need in order to accomplish what we need to accomplish for our people. As it relates to this issue of reparations, from your perspectives, both of you all, are Black folks unified in this effort to want reparations? Like I wonder if there's a large segment of Black folks who are not in favor of reparations. It's just like, man, that was in the past, let's move on. So are we unified? Are there enough of us who want reparations and see the need of this to repair our condition? We'll go with Dr. Abdul Haleem, and then we'll come back to you, brother, Dr. Asad.
See, Dr. Asad hit the lick in the beginning, post-traumatic slave syndrome. Many of us suffer from it. And so we're afraid to defend ourselves. We're afraid to ask for anything because we don't feel that we deserve anything, because we don't feel like we're human. It's not only that the people who look down upon us don't see us as human, we don't even see ourselves as human. And then there is a segment of our community. Some of them are in the boule. Some of them are the gatekeepers that control the masses. And when we start to rise up, they go to those are the go-to people, and they come and they calm us down and that kind of thing. And then there's a conservative wing of our people, like the Shelby Steels and the others, Thomas Sowells and others like that, who just believe in the American way. And you just got to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, even though we don't have any boots or straps to pull ourselves up by. So we have to take the whole range of our people. No, we're not unified, brother. And that is purposeful. The number one denial objective of the U.S. government during the COINTELPRO program, and just since the rebellions of slavery under Nat Turner, was that we never be organized, effectively organized. Because the difference between a tropical storm and a Cat 5 hurricane that Katrina was as it passed by is this level of organization.
Thank you. What do you say, Dr. Asad?
I appreciate that analogy.
Especially from here.
Yeah, and that's the poet in me. I like that. Repeat the question for me, Brother Willie.
Like, in regards to, are we unified enough on this issue of reparation as a people to be able to get it? Because I say this, I doubt if we go back and we look at the reparations that were given to the Native Americans, to the Asian Americans after World War II, if you found them fighting over whether or not this government should readdress what happened to them, but you found us fighting over it.
I think we are moving towards a consensus on reparations, and it was pushed by groups like the ADOS movement with Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore, who were very vocal about reparations, whether we agree with all their politics or not. There were Ta-Nehisi Coates and his article that he wrote on reparations, and Sheila Jackson Lee in the bill, I believe is HR 40, I believe it was called.
And Cobra too.
And Cobra also. So I believe there's some organizations who are now beginning to get the type of attention that is needed to put it on the minds of Black folk who may not have thought about reparations, or for so long who have thought, well, we deserve it, but we're not going to get it. So this Evanston thing is important because now we have an example of Black people, not Jews, not Native Americans, not the Japanese. We have an example of Black people who are now receiving some form of reparations. Is it enough? By no means is it enough. Is it a complete and total repair of what has been done to Black people? By no means. But it's an example that we can use to say, here, we have Black people who have received reparations. Now Black folk in New Orleans need to start raising our voice and say, hey, where's our check? Because I know I'm asking for it.
Yes, we definitely know you are asking for that check as well. Doctor, so what we're going to do, thank you all, brothers, and really enjoyed your contribution, your insight on this, on these segments. And I look forward to every first Monday of the month hearing from both of you all. So we're going to close out. We thank each and every one of you all for joining us today and tuning into NNV. Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Please hit the like button. It's not that we're out of vanity, but if you hit the like button, then that increases or influences the algorithms where more people can see this content. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Willie Muhammad with National Network View News. Thank you.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.